Okay, let's move on to religion. Religious beliefs often influence nutrition and place restrictions on the foods eaten and sometimes in the way they're prepared also. In the Jewish religion, um, they the essential laws are slaughtering must be done by a qualified person and in a specific manner. Meat and meat products may not be prepared with milk or with milk products. Dishes used in preparation and serving of meats must be kept separate from those with dairy foods. So they do not mix their meats and their dairies, not even with serving dish or anything like that. They cannot be eaten together. Dairy and meats cannot. 6 hours must elapse after eating a meat before eating a dairy product, and at least 30 minutes to an hour between a dairy and a meat. So if the meat is eaten first, they have to wait at least 6 hours. And if they eat the dairy first, they have to wait 30 minutes to an hour before they can eat a meat product. The mouth must be rinsed after eating fish and before eating meat. And they do not eat the following: any animals with a cloven hoof, animals that do not chew their cud, the hindquarters of any animal, shellfish or fish without scales or fins, birds of prey, creeping things and insects, and leavened bread during Passover. And then they have to fast on certain days: Passover week, Yom Kippur, and the Feast of Purim. Chicken and fresh smoked and salted fish are popular, and they like noodles, eggs, and flour dishes. Their diets can be deficient in fresh vegetables and milk. Roman Catholics actually have been very liberalized. They're not allowed to eat meat on Ash Wednesday or on Fridays during Lent. And those are the only restrictions that Roman Catholics have. The Islamic faith prohibits the use of pork and alcohol, and meats have to be slaughtered according to very specific laws. During the month of Ramadan, they do not eat or drink anything during daylight hours. The next factor that influences nutrition is socioeconomics. The amount of money that somebody has. The more money does not necessarily mean better nutrition, but for less money, it often means that people buy food more carefully than those with higher incomes, and they tend to buy the things that are the cheapest and the quickest, and they are the ones that tend to be the highest in sodium, sometimes the highest in fats. They're those processed foods that have less nutritional value for them. Processed foods are anything that's like ready to eat, your soups, your lunch meats, and they're also all high in sodium. Um, then you have your fads. Food fads are the beliefs that persist for a period of time about a certain food and generally have no scientific basis. And a few years ago, you had the grapefruit and egg diet. Then you had the liquid protein diet. It overloads the body with protein, yet lacks other nutrients. An excessive amount of protein is hard on the kidneys. High protein, low carb diets such as the Atkins diet have been around forever. They can lose weight very quickly, but it's not a diet of choice in the long run, and they tend to revert back to the varied and more desirable choices. Once carbs are introduced back into the diet, then they gain the weight back. High protein diets are not recommended for clients with liver or kidney conditions, and may leave those people with depleted glycogen stores. Superstitions. They are irrational beliefs about a food that are generally passed down from generation to generation. It's kind of a cultural thing. Examples of superstitions that that toast is less fattening than bread. Another superstition is that cravings during pregnancy should be satisfied or the infant will be marked or deformed. So those are some of those superstitious things. And that takes care of the factors that influence nutrition. So we're going to move on to nutritional needs during the life cycle. And the first step is infancy. Food and its preparation are extremely important during the baby's first year. The psychosocial development is affected by the time and the manner when food is offered. It's preferable to feed infants on demand now. It prevents the frustrations that hunger can bring and helps the child develop trust in people. Normally, the demand schedule averages approximately every 4 hours by the time the baby is 2 to 3 months old. The first year of life is the period with the most rapid growth. A baby doubles its weight by 6 months and triples it by the first year. That is why an infant's energy, vitamin, mineral, and protein requirements are so much higher per unit of body weight than those of older children and adults. Normally, during the first year, a child needs 100 kilocalories per kilogram of body weight. You don't have to know that. But that's about 2 to 3 times that of an adult. Infants who have suffered low birth weight, malnutrition, or illness require more than the number of kilocalorie per kilogram of body weight. Breast milk is used as the guide for which nutritional requirements of infants are measured. Breast milk provides temporary immunity to many infectious diseases. It's sterile, easy to digest, and usually does not cause GI disturbances or allergic reactions. Typically, breastfed babies grow more rapidly in the first few months than formula-fed babies, and they have fewer infections, especially ear infections. Breast milk contains less protein and minerals than infant formula and reduces the load on the infant kidneys as well. You can be assured that a breastfed baby is getting sufficient nutrients and kilocalories if, number 1, there are 6 or more wet diapers per day. Number 2, they have normal growth. Number 3, that there are 1 or 2 mustard-colored bowel movements a day. And number 4, that the breast becomes soft during nursing. Now, if a mother works and is not able to breastfeed the baby all the time, she can express the milk, and it can be refrigerated or frozen and then used at the appropriate time, or formula can be substituted. Breast milk should never ever be warmed in the microwave because the antibodies are destroyed. It has to be warmed in a cup of water or place a bag of the breast milk in water to heat it. Cow's milk, regular dairy milk, is never given to a child under the age of 1. The protein's more difficult and slower to digest, and it can cause GI blood loss. The kidneys are also challenged by the high protein and mineral content, and dehydration and even a damage to the central nervous system can result. Formula-fed babies are usually based on cow's milk because it's abundant and easily modified to resemble human milk in nutrient value and kilocalorie value. Sometimes infants are sensitive or allergic to infant formulas, and a synthetic formula from soybeans has to be given instead. Formula comes in ready to feed, concentrate, and powdered forms. Sterile water has to be mixed with the concentrated and powder forms, and the most convenient is also the most expensive. If you buy a type of formula that requires the addition of water, it's essential that you mix the correct amount of water. Too little water can make it too heavy and be too much of a protein and mineral load for the kidneys. Too much water can dilute the nutrient and kilocalorie value, and the infant will not thrive. It's not getting enough nutrition. Solid foods are introduced approximately 4 to 6 months, not before that. The child's GI tract and the kidneys are not developed enough to handle solid foods before that age. Early introduction of solid foods also increases the likelihood of overfeeding and the possibility of food allergies to develop, especially in children whose parents already have food allergies. An infant's readiness for solid foods will be demonstrated by number 1, the physical ability to pull food into the mouth. Number 2, the willingness to participate in the process. Number 3, the ability to sit up with support. Number 4, having good head and neck control. And number 5, the need for additional nutrients. An infant that drinks more than 32 ounces of formula or nursed more than 8 to 10 times in 24 hours should be started on solid foods. Solid foods should be introduced gradually and individually, one food at a time, and then no new food for another 4 to 5 days. If there's not any allergic reaction to the food that was tried, introduce another food. Allow the wait period, then try another food. The typical order of introduction of solid foods was cereal, usually an iron-fortified rice, and then oat, wheat, and mixed cereals. Cooked and pureed vegetables were next, and then cooked and pureed fruits after that. Egg yolk, and then finely ground meats. Infants should not be given egg whites before the age of 1 year. When the infant learns to drink from a cup, they can also be given juice at that time. Juice should never be given from the bottle because they fill up on it and they don't get enough calories from other sources. Pasteurized apple juice is usually the first juice that's given, and only 100% juices are recommended. By the age of 2, precautions should be taken to avoid foods that might cause a child to choke. Some of the great choking hazards are with hot dogs, nuts, peas, grapes, popcorn, small candies, and small pieces of meat or raw vegetables. You have to cautiously introduce nuts because they can cause severe allergic responses in some children. Also, honey should never be given to any child under the age of 12 months because it can be contaminated with Clostridium botulinum bacteria. Okay. So honey, never before 12 months. Okay, let's move on to childhood. Specific nutritional requirements change as the children grow. Studies show that mental ability and size of an individual are directly influenced by the nutrition in the early years. And the eating habits are developed during childhood also. Good eating habits generally last a lifetime, while poor eating habits are difficult to change. Children's appetites also vary, and the rate of growth is not constant. In the second year of life, they approximately gain only about 5 pounds. Their likes and dislikes constantly change, and new foods should be introduced gradually in small amounts and as attractively as possible. Fats should be limited before age 2. Whole milk is recommended until age 2, and then you switch to low fat or fat-free milk. They should not add salt to children's food. Children are especially sensitive to hot and reject cold foods. They like crisp textures, mild flavors, and familiar foods. A good rule of thumb is for preschool children, 1 tablespoon of new food for each year of age. Children usually need a snack about every 3 to 4 hours, and they often prefer finger foods. And cheese, saltines, fruit, milk, and unsweetened cereals make good snacks for children. And some of the tips for parents on choking. Again, avoid foods that cause the choking, like we talked about, up to about age 3. Peanut butter should only be offered on bread or a cracker. And children should sit upright while they eat, and running should be prohibited with food or objects in the mouth.